Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. This is another Noodle film review today. Today I'm talking about one of my favourite sort of films from the 80s. It was directed by Jean-Jacques Arnaud, based on a book by Umberto Eco, and it is The Name of the Rose, starring Sean Connery. And as you can see, a very young Christian Slater. This is a fantastic movie. Before we go into it, I'll just tell you about the edition. I have this on DVD, but this is the Blu-ray copy, which is, I believe it's from Sweden. So it's a European version, because this has not got a UK release in the UK, obviously. It's just never got a Blu-ray release. So I've had to pick the Blu-ray up from Europe. But I'm really glad to get this into my collection, to be honest. I absolutely love this film. Right, so that's the edition I've got here. So a bit about the film. Okay, it's based right back in the medieval times in Europe, and it's basically about a monastery. And the monastery are experiencing some murders of the monks there. So they have called in Sean Connery, who's like a sort of monk, sort of investigator that's been sort of shone by all the religion, and he's like a little bit of an outcast. But the monks have called him in to investigate what's causing the murders before the Spanish Inquisition come along and investigate it. Because when the Spanish Inquisition used to come along, it was all down to witchcraft. So you would find lots of people being burnt at the stake and things like that because of witchcraft. So they've called him in, and this is his young apprentice who accompanied him on this investigation at the monastery. So the story follows around the story from around the monastery, and it is about the sort of murders. It is a horror film. I class it as a horror film. It's got little bits of a slasher sort of elements to the story, just because it was kind of like a whodunit sort of thing, you know, who's doing the killings. So it is definitely a horror film. It is a 15 certification. There are some sort of scenes of gore in there, not a lot, but there are some. There's some sort of smaller parts in there from actors like Ron Perlman. You'll see probably in one of his early films in there as well. But I love the story. I love the setting. It's just fantastic, and I love I love sort of medieval horror. I think it's one of my favourite genres. That doesn't really get a lot of films, especially if they're based around this kind of thing or witchcraft. I love those sort of horror films. And this one is really, really cool because it's got that sort of little bit of a sort of Sherlock Holmes vibe to it, because it's like an investigation who's done it. And you know, you can see all the investigation that he's doing, and when he is there, the murders are still happening. So it's a really, really gripping story, and comes to a really sort of climatic end. Now, the story, the actual name of the film, Name of the Rose, really doesn't relate to the story. What that relates to is one of the subplots of the story involving the young lad. So you would get to, I'm not going to tell you too much about that, because I want you to sort of like discover that if you watch the film yourself. And I really highly recommend you watch it yourself. So the positives about this film: it's an amazing storyline. It really grabs you, and you want to see what happens. It's that sort of film. It's quite a grainy film, but I love that. I think it's shot beautifully. I love the way it's sort of shot. I love the music. It's got loads of sort of Gregorian chant, because they're monks, so a lot of it's sort of like Gregorian chant music. The story is at a great pace. It moves really, really well. And it's just one of the classics. And I just think it's a film that's really underrated. And I believe it was my number one in underrated films, if I remember right. I can't remember. But fantastic film. Negatives. The only negative I can say about this film is probably the picture quality. Obviously, it's not had the remastering it deserves. It does look better on the Blu-ray than the DVD, but it's still got the grain of like that in there, so it's not the highest quality. And obviously the only other negative thing I can find about this film, it hasn't got a UK release. um, you can pick it up on DVD, but you cannot pick it up on Blu-ray. You have to search like Amazon or eBay or somewhere else to pick up the European version. So this is again a must-watch film. I give this, if I got to score it, 9 out of 10. Uh, it would have got a 10 out of 10 if it wasn't for the fact that the quality of the film isn't as good as it should be. That's the only thing that's disappointing with the actual film. But 9 out of 10, for the story, it's fantastic. I haven't read the book. I thought about it, but the book's like that thick, and I just thought, oh, I've never got that much free time to sort of read Umberto Eco's books. He writes loads of medieval sort of detective investigation sort of films. I mean, stories. But this one was turned into the film. So, Name of the Rose. Really highly recommend that. So there we are, guys. That's the end of this review. I hope you do check that film out. That it's just fantastic. There's, when there's some films that come along, and I mean, I watched this when it came out, and it's stuck in my head since. And every time I watch it, I enjoy it. I've seen it probably about 6 to 7 times over the years. I'm not I'm not a person that watches the same film over and over. I am that guy. I watch my Friday the 13th over and over. But this sort of film, I want to forget it a little bit. So when I watch it again, it's a little bit fresher. There was like a remake done of this not so long ago. Avoid it, guys. Please, I beg you. Avoid remakes. Always go for the original. Because they are a document of that period and of that time, and the remake will not capture what this essence of this film gives you. So always go for the original. So if you're looking for the original Name of the Rose, it must be starring Sean Connery, the late great Sean Connery. Anyway, guys, until the next review, look after yourselves, look after one another, and I really hope I see you all soon.